should note at the outset, I have no direct involvement whatsoever in the aviation sector. My background is really in software engineering and entrepreneurship. I was contacted by the former Minister of Transport, Mr. Shane Ross, in early June, asking whether I would consider acting as a neutral chairman from outside of the aviation sector for the Aviation Task Force, which he was putting together. And having reflected, I agreed to do so. He emphasized to me the urgency with which we should undertake our work and the speed at which we should come up with our recommendations. The members of the task force were invited by the minister. I had no involvement in putting the task force together. And some of my colleagues in the task force, I believe, have already spoken to you, and perhaps in the future there are further members too. I don't know your own agenda. We had 4 meetings in early June, mid-June, and finishing on the July the 3rd. We produced an interim report after 2 weeks and a final report after a further 2 weeks. Our work was very intense. We worked with the Secretariat over weekends to produce our recommendations. I would hope that deputies and senators have had an opportunity perhaps to visit our report, and particularly the final report, and look at our recommendations. I will not repeat them here. We then presented our reflections to the Ministers Ryan and Minister of State Hildegard Naughton on the 10th of July, and subsequently to a broader audience, including the Secretary to the Government in late July. The task force has not met since that last meeting and in effect has ceased its work. My only comment as somebody from outside of the sector and working with young startups is how important aviation is to us as an economy. A small nation on the periphery of Europe, there's a certain amount that can be done by calls, by virtual calls like this, Zoom and GoToMeeting and so on. But for new business development, for trying to win new customers, trying to raise international finance, trying to hire new international staff, develop new partnerships, it's virtually impossible to do that just with virtual conference calls. Face-to-face meetings are important. And business, after all, is done between people, not between companies. And establishing new business relationships, one needs that personal contact. It's extremely difficult, I think, and frustrating for companies based in Ireland, indigenous companies based in Ireland with export markets, that their competitors overseas are able to travel more freely than we are in this country at this point, and that places further stress on the high potential technology startup sector.